Whenever I think of the Salem witch trials, I can't help but wonder, was everyone in that town on drugs? Turns out they might have been. Scientists argue that the fungus which makes LSD grew on the town's supply of crops, causing the spasms and hallucinations that were blamed on witchcraft. To me, the most bizarre part of this is imagining all those townspeople being like, "Whoa, cool! Look at that weird puffy stuff growing on the barley! I bet it tastes delicious!" I mean, fair. Even LSD beats ye old bucket o' lard. So turns out, the people of Salem didn't accuse each other out of malice. Rather, they were just scared of what they didn't understand. And also high as kites. But frequently, we think doing something wrong, like putting innocent people on trial for witchcraft, means there's something inherently wrong with you. We dismiss the effect of the situation, instead assuming a person's actions always directly stem from their convictions, their decisions, and their personalities. This belief is called the fundamental attribution error, FAE, because it makes the error of attributing people's actions to fundamental parts of them. It's easy to see how FAE can make us blame people for doing the wrong thing when really they didn't have a choice. I'm not saying we should condone anything because of situational factors, but the majority of people who make mistakes might not be bad people. Rather, they could figuratively be on LSD, or in situations which force questionable behavior. And situations which control people's actions in this way are more often than not harmful. My concern is that by ignoring the situation, we can ignore hardship and allow it to continue. So today, let's go on a witch hunt. First, we'll hallucinate the causes of FAE. Then, we'll blame the delusions on prudence. No one likes prudence. And lay out the ways it's ingrained in our society. Finally, we'll put some solutions on trial. People just don't hold grudges like they did in 1692. Nowadays, it's all, "You tried to sabotage my dairy-free diet by offering me ice cream. I guess I can't make it to your birthday." Back then, "You curdled my milk. I guess you can't make it to your birthday, because you'll be dead by then. Payback's a witch." Harsh, but then it is a historical fact that Salem was full of Karens. To be fair, though, the fundamental attribution error occurs for a good reason. FAE was first discovered by a Duke University study in which participants listened to speeches about Fidel Castro. Listeners knew that speakers didn't get to choose their positions. Nevertheless, they consistently believed speakers agreed with what they were saying, attributing their actions to their opinions, rather than to random assignment of the speeches. FAE happens even when we know better. And we all do it, thinking that the friend who left you on red is callous, when really she might just be busy. Or maybe that driver who cut you off is rushing to a hospital. Harvard researcher Joe Moran studied neurological processes during FAE and found that it occurs when we try to guess at people's motives. He explains that as social creatures, we're evolutionarily designed to be attuned to people's mental states. Consequently, we view actions in terms of the intentions behind them. This happens even when actions aren't intended at all, but rather forced by the situation. At first gleam, it seems the fundamental attribution error is a small price to pay for getting to know what people think. But it has consequences. The University of Haifa found that just like participants in the Fidel Castro study thought that anyone who read a pro-Castro essay was a Marxist, we think actors mean everything they say and do in scripted TV shows. The issue becomes clear when we consider actors who play despised roles, like Ollie in Game of Thrones, frequently receive death threats. The fundamental attribution error isn't just a fun psychological side effect, it's a problem. I think the people of Salem would have been a lot more lenient if they realized how difficult things are for witches. They don't join satanic cults just for the hell of it. They make sacrifices. Broomstick riding sounds splinteringly painful, not to mention all the health concerns in living in a structurally unsound and dangerously tempting candy house. When it comes to health, the fundamental attribution error is very common in our explanations for diagnoses. Illness, like behavior, is seen as a product of people's decisions. The National Institute of Mental Health identifies the common misconception that depression is a sign of weakness, and those who suffer from it simply need to work harder to improve their attitude. That's right, we attribute mental illness to laziness. And it's the same story with physical ailments. MD PhD Richard Gunderman contests that we attribute all kinds of maladies to behaviors like smoking or poor diet choice. These behaviors rarely correlate with the illnesses we say they do. Yet they do correlate with demographic characteristics like race or socioeconomic status, factors which patients can't control. The World Bank contests that poverty is a major cause of ill health. Yet the fundamental attribution error would have us believe that illness is voluntary. FAE also plays into the COVID pandemic. According to the CDC, Black Americans are almost 4 times more likely than white Americans to be hospitalized from COVID. Yet, instead of looking to documented discrimination and disparities in healthcare as the causes of this horrific divide, America blamed Black communities themselves. Politicians, journalists, and doctors alike have succumbed to FAE, launching wild accusations that Black people don't take COVID seriously enough. Yet the Pew Research Center found Black Americans twice as likely to view COVID as a major threat to their health. We can't blame patients, especially Black patients, for their illnesses. Doing so is not only factually wrong, but morally wrong as well, because it puts the burden to get better on those patients. If an illness is solely caused by a patient's behavior, and ending the behavior will stop that illness, then there's no need for substantive medical intervention. Ultimately, FAE disincentivizes providing health care and reduces people's ability to recover. Fun fact, one of the women accused of witchcraft in Salem got off because she was expecting a baby. Although that's not what I'd think if someone told me a witch had one in the oven. That poor kid, though, he'll probably grow up eating eye of newt and toe of frog every day for lunch. Much like having a witch for a mother, the fundamental attribution error can ruin lives. Nowhere is this more apparent than in our tendency to think domestic abuse survivors choose to stay with their abusers. In her memoir, Whose Face is in the Mirror, Diane Schwartz describes how she stayed with her husband through years of beatings. FAE would have us condemn her right there. In reality, Diane's husband threatened to kill her if she left. But always, the most important reason she stayed was a fear of others' reactions if she came forward. Sometimes, domestic abuse victims' knowledge of the hardship they'll face when they speak out is enough to prevent them from doing so in the first place. In this way, the fundamental attribution error causes the very actions it later condemns. In Salem, witches had 2 main pieces of advice for each other. Never hex while flying, and always wear flame-retardant pajamas. When it comes to combating FAE, there's really only one thing you need to remember to do. Research published by the University of Oxford found that when we make situational attributions, resisting FAE, brain activity indicates a conscious control over our thoughts. That's right, all that's needed to stop yourself from committing FAE is a knowledge of what you're thinking and a willingness to change it. Mediator Dorit Price-Levine offers a concrete way of achieving this through the phrase, "They probably have a puking disease." This is a light-hearted way of reminding ourselves to give people the benefit of the doubt. If a friend flakes on a hangout, instead of getting angry at her, think that she probably threw up right before and had to cancel. They probably have a puking disease. lets us remember that people aren't always 100% in control of their actions. Overall, the Salem witch trials were an incredible success. I mean, when's the last time you've been attacked by a witch? I hope that someday, if we cultivate our empathy enough, the fundamental attribution error too will become a thing of the past.